All right. Good morning. It's Monday, April 20th. This is the weekend update, but I'm doing it Monday morning, so you could sue me if you want. So hope you guys are all doing well. We're pretty far into this thing, and obviously we've probably all come to the realization that we're not coming back this year. I even heard that summer school, if you're taking that, it's going to be distance learning. Um, so what kind of things are we looking at this week? This week in U.S. history, I'm going to do this as one video, both U.S. and world. In U.S. history, we are going to be wrapping up the Cold War, and we're going to be looking at the anti-war movement. When I say anti-war movement, we're talking about the Vietnam War specifically. You're going to look at that, and you're going to look at the pushback from the voters, if you will. Vietnam originally was supported by Americans, but as the war extended, the anti-war movement grew, and there was a lot of pressure put onto politicians to end it. You're going to look at Kent State, a college where there's protests happening, and U.S. Armed Guards fired on college students. And you're also going to be comparing and contrasting the anti-war movement with people who were actually for the Vietnam War. But as the war continues on and expands and there's more and more deaths, America becomes weary of it and they want out. So with JFK, it starts with a few advisors. After he's assassinated in 1963, LBJ, his vice president, takes over and he expands that. And Nixon actually takes it even further. So the Vietnam War wraps up and ends, and it's kind of the first time that the United States has been in a war that we lost. So you're going to take a look at that. You're going to analyze that through the textbook and a few short videos, and I'll pop a few things in during the week. That's due on Friday. By the way, U.S. history, I went to campus today, and I graded the World War II tests, so I'll be entering those this week. By the way, campus looks overgrown with all sorts of grass and bushes. It feels almost post-apocalyptic. All right, so for world history, you're going to be looking at a section on building Western democracies. So after World War II, we've been looking at the Cold War and the schism between communism and democracies. We've kind of focused a little bit on the growth of communism in China and the Soviet Union and other parts in the world. But we're going to be focusing this week on what was happening in Western democracies. And a couple of things we're going to be looking at are the economic boom of the United States. We'll look at the role of government in Western democracies, which the role of government actually grew after World War II. We'll be looking at civil rights movements as well as women's rights movements in Western democracies. We'll look at the Great Society and social programs that were created in the United States. We'll also be looking at Western Europe and how it was rebuilt. And Germany and Britain were both kind of on the mend after World War II. And we're going to look at the early foundations of the EU, also known as the European Union. If you've been following the news, and I know a few of you did a few presentations on Brexit, and Brexit is actually the opposite of that. It's Britain wanting to leave the European Union. This is kind of the foundation, the early footprint of the European Union. And, when you think about the European Union in terms of world history, you should think about, the United States. We have federalism. We have 50 states, but we also have a national government. So it's this kind of shared power between states and the federal government. But when you look at Europe, those are all independent sovereignties, their own nation states. And so what they were trying to do was create a system known as the EU that wouldn't mimic federalism that the United States has exactly, but it would actually kind of benefit all the nations in Europe. So they wouldn't tariff or tax each other when they cross borders. It's a little more complicated now, and Britain wants out. So, but that's for another day. Okay, hope you guys are well. And we'll be done with April before we know it. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great week.